Okay, am I audible?
Good morning, sir. Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. We'll wait for a few more minutes. Yes. So today will be my last class. So till now, what you have seen is classification of channel. I mean, the first part was narrowband, and then we came to wideband. And in wideband, we have seen that we can classify the channel based on two properties. First one due to multipath, and because of multipath, we can classify the channel as in order to compare this channel, we need some parameter. We should compare the symbol time or symbol bandwidth to some parameters, right? So those parameters are called coherence time and Doppler spread. So we'll see what is coherence time, how we'll find coherence time, and how we'll find Doppler spread. Okay. So to start with, we have the autocorrelation, that is AC of delta F and delta T. Okay, and what we are doing is we are doing Fourier transform with respect to delta T, and we are not doing it with respect to delta F. Can you tell me why we are doing the Fourier transform with respect to delta T here? I mean, last time what we did is not with respect to delta T, right? When we considered multipath, it was something else. And this time we are considering delta T. We are doing the Fourier transform with respect to delta T. Why is it so? The idea is that delay tau, if you're considering tau, if you're considering delay tau, that means that we are investigating multipath, right? We are investigating multipath. But if we are considering T1, T2, T3, etc., that is time instance, different time instance, then we are investigating Doppler. Okay, that is why we are not doing the Fourier transform with respect to tau, and we are doing Fourier transform with respect to delta t, where delta t is the difference between two time instants like t2 minus t1 or t3 minus t2 or whatever, which means that we are investigating the channel variation with respect to time. We are not considering the multipath now, we are considering the change of the channel. We are considering the change of the channel with respect to time, Okay, so now we have the autocorrelation, that is AC of delta F delta T, and we are multiplying it with e raised to minus j 2 pi rho delta T d delta T, which means that we are doing the Fourier transform with respect to delta T. And the term, in the output we have the scattering function, that is SC of delta F comma rho, where rho defines the effect of Doppler. Okay. Now, first step is to do the Fourier transform. First step is to do the Fourier transform. Now, after performing the Fourier transform, what we are going to do is we are assigning delta F is equal to 1. Delta F is equal to 1, which means that we are not considering different frequency components. We are not considering different frequency components like F1, F2, F3, F4, etc. We are sticking on to one particular frequency and then investigating the variation of the channel with respect to time. With respect to, we are investigating the channel variation, sticking on to one particular frequency. Hence, the scattering functions becomes SC of rho. Instead of SC of delta F comma rho, it becomes SC of rho. Okay. So the pair will be AC of delta T and SC of rho. Since we are assuming delta F is equal to 0, the Fourier transform pair will be AC of delta T and SC of rho. It's clear? We are assuming delta F is equal to 0, which means that we are sticking on to one particular frequency. We are selecting a single frequency. Therefore, the Fourier transform pair, that is the autocorrelation scattering function pair, will be AC of delta T and SC of rho. Okay, now we have two Fourier transform pair. A Fourier transform pair, that is the autocorrelation function and the scattering function. And after getting these two units, what we are doing is that we will be plotting these units, these values. That is, this is the autocorrelation function. First one is autocorrelation. Second one is scattering function. So the range of value of the autocorrelation during which the output is non-zero. Okay, range of value of, you can see that during this particular time, that is, you can see during this TC, AC of delta T is non-zero. AC of delta T is non-zero. Okay, so during this particular time, there is considerable amount of correlation. So during this particular time, that is within TC, there is considerable correlation. And beyond that TC, beyond TC, there is no correlation. Okay, so within TC, the value will be, autocorrelation value will be non-zero, and there is considerable amount of correlation. Beyond TC, what we will be getting is there is no correlation, and therefore autocorrelation will give the value as 0. Since there is no correlation, autocorrelation function will be 0. Within TC, there is correlation, therefore there is non-zero value. Outside TC, there is no correlation, therefore it is 0. Okay, so I'll just write it here. Within TC, there is correlation, therefore output is non-zero. Outside TC, there is no correlation. If you take two values, there is no correlation. Therefore, since there is no correlation, what will be the output of autocorrelation function? Since there is no correlation, output will be 0. Right. So beyond that particular range, we'll be having, after TC, we will be having the autocorrelation function as 0. Within TC, we'll be having the autocorrelation function as non-zero. So what is this TC? TC is the channel coherence time. TC is yes. TC refers to coherence time, which means that there is a correlation within TC. Channel does not vary much within TC, which means that there is considerable amount of correlation within TC. But after TC, channel varies much. After TC, there is no correlation, therefore the channel variation is high, or there is considerable amount of channel variation beyond TC. Okay, that is kind of a layman language. That is, within TC means there is channel is not varying much. Channel is almost like static. There is no considerable variation. But after TC, if you're considering a time after TC, channel has, there is a considerable amount of variation after TC. Okay, so that is the importance of TC coherence time. Okay, now we'll consider the Fourier transform pair, that is the scattering function. We'll consider the Fourier transform pair, that is a scattering function. So scattering function is represented by SC of rho. SC of rho. So similar to the autocorrelation function, similar to this autocorrelation function that we have just considered, we are finding the non-zero value of AC of tau here, right? See, we are finding the non-zero value here. Similarly, we are finding non-zero value here in the frequency domain also. So that particular range is called as Doppler spread, where the scattering function will output a non-zero value. The range of values where SC of rho is non-zero is called as Doppler spread. Which means that coherence time and Doppler spread are inversely proportional. Doppler spread. Coherence time and Doppler spread are inversely proportional. Roughly speaking, BD is equal to 1 by TC, or TC equal to 1 by BD, vice versa. Okay, so that is how we can relate coherence time and Doppler spread. So coherence time is the time within which channel variation is very less, and after coherence time there is considerable amount of variation. So can you tell me which one is good? If we have a simple time within coherence time, what will happen? That is, if we have TS that is less than TC, what will happen? And similarly, if we have TS which is very much greater than TC, what will happen? See, we have seen that the effect of TC. So if the time is within TC, there is less amount of variation. Channel is almost static. There is not much variation. But if the time is more than TC, then there is much variation. If the time is more than Tc, then there is much variation. So if the symbol time, if the symbol time Ts is less than Tc, then do we have much variation? We'll be having much variation or we'll be having lesser variation? What is the output here if Ts is less than Tc?
So if TS is less than TC, then whatever symbol we send will not be distorted because of the
Yes,
scattering.
there is less variation. That means that we'll be having lesser variation. I am talking in, I am explaining in layman's language. Please don't use this language in exam. You can stick on to the language that is used in textbook. So I am using this language to convey the idea to you. So since Ts is less than Tc, variation is less variation. Lesser variation means this is the standard notation, that is we'll be having slow fading. If Ts is less than Tc, we'll be having slow fading. But if Ts is greater than Tc, what will happen if Ts is greater than Tc? If Ts is greater than Tc, which means that two parts will feel different effect due to channel. That is, there is high variation. There is variation because Tc is less. After Tc, there will be variation, and since the symbol time is larger, different part of the symbol will be experiencing different kind of treatment, different kind of channel. Therefore, we can say that this symbol will be experiencing fast fading. This symbol will be experiencing fast fading. So there are two terms, slow fading and fast fading. If the symbol time is lesser, if symbol is not varying much, or symbol time is lesser than the coherence time, then we can say that the channel is slow fading. Or if Ts is greater than Tc, if Ts is greater than Tc, we can say that the channel is varying fast, or we can say that we are experiencing a fast fading. So there are two terms, slow fading and fast fading. Okay. So regarding the equations, how to represent coherence time, how to relate coherence time and Doppler spread. So if the correlation is above 0.5, which is usually the case, see everywhere earlier in multipath also we saw if the correlation is above 0.5. So here also, if the correlation is above 0.5, we'll be having Tc, which is equal to coherence time is equal to 9 by 16 pi into BD. Usually you have to write BD like this, BD like this, which is Doppler spread. Doppler spread. Okay. So there is also another way to find this. So usually, I mean, we can also find coherence time using the second equation, that is square root of 9 by 16 pi BD square, which is equal to 0.423 by BD. So there are different kind of equations used by different researchers, but I think we can go to one example and see how we can calculate coherence time, and we can see what is the effect of coherence time. Okay, so consider this example. Consider this example, that is we have a vehicle which is moving at 60 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour, and in the vehicle we have a user who is operating a mobile or something like that, who is transmitting or who is receiving. With the center frequency 900 megahertz, with the center frequency FC is equal to 900 megahertz. Okay, so with this data, find coherence time. Find coherence time. Find coherence time. So what do we have here? We have velocity. We have velocity that is in miles per hour, that is 60 miles per hour. So what you can do is we have to convert this to meter per second, V to meter per second. And there is another important aspect that you have to note, that is BD can be treated as, BD is almost equal to FM, which is is maximum of Doppler frequency, which is equal to V cos theta by lambda. Sorry, max of V cos theta by lambda, which is equal to V by lambda. So BD is equal to V by lambda. Here you can consider Doppler spread. You can consider Doppler spread as V by lambda. So after finding Doppler spread, what you can use is, you can use this equation, that is TC equal to 9 by 16 pi BD. Right? You can use this equation. TC is equal to 9 by 16 pi into BD. Okay, so now you have V. V is there. You know what is V, and you know what is lambda. How do you know? Because you have FC there. So from FC you can find lambda, and you can put those values here, and you can find TC. Yes, someone please find the value of TC. Not someone, everyone, please. By the way, how will you convert miles per hour to kilometer per hour?
Sir, 1.6 into 5 by 10.
Yeah, to be precise, 1.61. So 1 mile is equal to 1.61 kilometer, right? Then you have to convert this kilometer per hour to meter per second. You have to use SI units. You cannot simply use kilometer per hour. You have to convert it into meter per second.
Sir, is it 2.2 milliseconds?
What is the value?
2.2 milliseconds.
2.2. Yeah, that's correct. Are you getting it, everyone? What about others? Are you getting it? Yes.
2.22 milliseconds.
Yes. Yeah. I hope that everyone is getting it. So the important, topics to be noted here is that Doppler spread, that is BD, can be evaluated from FM. FM is the maximum value of FD, which is V by lambda. So BD can be equated to V by lambda. So this is the important, step that is to be noted. So once we have this coherence time, we know that if a symbol time is less than Tc, then there is not much variation, and if the symbol time is more than Tc, then there is much variation, right? Now you tell me, what is the best? I mean, what is the what is the best 0.22 millisecond? Right? So that means that rate is equal to, that is data rate is equal to 1 by, let us say, let us find a rate which is equal to 1 by Tc. That is, what is the value which we just saw? 454. 454 bps, bits per second. So what will happen if the rate is more than 450? Different kinds of channels. That means the channel variation is fast. Therefore, these 2 points will be experiencing different kind of channels. Therefore, we say that we are experiencing fast fading. But if the TS is lesser, the start point and the end point of the symbol, you can look at case 2. The starting point and ending point of that symbol will be having same effect, same channel. Why? The reason is that it is within that particular TC block, within coherence time. Therefore, those 2 points will be experiencing same effect due to experiencing fast fading, because TS is greater compared to TC. In case 2, TS is smaller compared to TC, and therefore it is experiencing slow fading. Now we'll see some loop. We'll see a loop of autocorrelation function and scattering function, and how can we travel from one point to another, etc. etc. So we made delta t is equal to 0. Right? Delta t is equal to 0 to get AC of delta f. Right? Then we got AC of delta f. So these two terms, that is AC of tau comma delta t and AC of delta f comma delta t are because of multipath. These two terms are because of multipath. Right? If you here AC of tau, AC of tau and AC of delta f, which shows the effect of multipath, and those are the Fourier transform pair. Now you can see the next two terms, AC of delta f comma delta t and SC of delta f comma rho. Second term and third term, these two terms. So these are because of Doppler. T became rho here. So these two terms, AC of delta f comma delta t and SC of delta f comma rho, are because of Doppler. So let me just say it once again. That is the first term AC of tau comma delta t and second term AC of delta f comma delta t are because of multipath, and the second term and third term AC of delta f comma delta t and the scattering function SC of delta f comma rho, those two terms are because of Doppler. Okay, And similarly, we'll be having other terms like SC of tau comma rho. If you take Fourier transform of this term with respect to tau, you will get SC of tau comma rho. And again, if you take the third term SC of tau comma rho, and then you take Fourier transform with respect to delta t, inverse Fourier transform with respect to rho. Inverse Fourier transform with respect to rho, you will get the autocorrelation function, that is AC of tau comma delta t. So this is nothing but how these functions are related. Like we saw plenty of autocorrelation function, transformed autocorrelation function to scattering function by doing Fourier transform with respect to delta t and with respect to tau, etc. So how these terms are related, so we can have an idea about how these terms are related from this diagram. Okay, now if you see that equation, how can we arrive at SC of tau comma rho from, look at that equation. How can we arrive at SC of tau comma rho from AC of delta F comma delta T? See, AC, how can you arrive at SC of tau comma rho from SC of delta T? So what is the operation that is to be performed to reach SC of tau comma rho from AC of delta F comma delta T? Can you look at the figure and tell me what are the operations to be performed? Yes, someone. So if you look at the figure, you can see that if you take a Fourier transform, with respect to delta t, you will reach SC of delta F comma rho. Right. First of all, you have to take a Fourier transform with respect to delta t. So you can see here in the equation, this is the Fourier transform. That is e raised to minus j 2 pi rho delta t. That is, you are taking the Fourier transform with respect to delta t. And second operation is that you have to take the inverse Fourier transform with respect to delta f. So you can look at this equation. You can do inverse Fourier transform. That is e raised to j 2 pi tau delta f. You can do this, and then you will reach the destination, that is SC of tau comma rho. You will reach SC of tau comma rho. Okay, so if you have this diagram, then you will know what is the equation to be used to travel from one point to another. Okay, we'll see one more example. That is how to find the delay spread if you have SC of tau comma rho. See, how to find the delay spread. You have this thing. See, you have SC of tau comma rho. How to find delay spread? What was the equation? Mu Tm, right? Mu Tm. So how to find the delay spread? Mu Tm, or you are used this one. Okay, fine. how to find the delay spread? So what should be our destination? Right now you are in SC of tau comma rho, right? You have to be in SC of tau comma rho, or you have to move from SC of tau comma rho to some other place. When we derived this, delay spread, which was the starting point? Our starting point was, see if you remember, our starting point was this thing, that is AC of tau comma delta t. This was our starting point. So what we have to do is that in order to find the delay spread, you have to travel from SC of tau comma rho to AC of tau comma delta t. So what you have to perform is, you have to perform one inverse Fourier transform with respect to rho, So the first step is to perform the inverse Fourier transform with respect to rho, and then you will get the delay profile, power delay profile. So once you have the power delay profile, you know how to do it. You can either use term using integration or using the summation. Okay, now you have what is delay spread, and then you can use different equations to find coherence bandwidth. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now the essence of what we have learned till now, like the essence of all this, like 9 hours or 8 hours, how much we have learned. Okay, so classification of channels due to different effects. So if you look at this table, I mean here to the left, you have slow fading, fast fading, flat fading, and frequency selective fading, right? So if you look at the first two effects, slow fading and fast fading, what is the reason that caused these effects, slow fading and fast fading? What is that effect? We have considered two effects, right? One is multipath. Multipath is there, then Doppler is there. I don't know, this is not, I'm not getting a proper handwriting here. Yeah, Doppler. We have multipath here and Doppler here. So which one causes slow fading and fast fading?
So Doppler effects.
Yes, so it is Doppler effect, which causes slow fading and fast fading. So if symbol time is lesser, then we say that we are experiencing slow fading, and if symbol time is greater, then we say that we are experiencing fast fading. So the first two terms, slow fading and fast fading, are because of the Doppler effect, and second two terms, obviously it is because of multipath. So that is the only one that is left, right? So multipath, multipath. So flat fading and frequency selective fading are because of multipath. So if symbol time is greater compared to the delay spread, then we say that we have flat fading. If symbol time is lesser compared to delay spread, then we say that we have frequency selective fading. So what you can do is, you need not go after each term separately. I mean the time domain version and frequency domain version separately. You can understand either one, that is either the time domain version, then you can invert it. You find the inverse version, then you will get the frequency domain version. Okay, now what we are doing is, we'll put these values to a graphical form. Graphical form in the sense that you have two axes here, x-axis and y-axis, and in x-axis it is symbol time. This one represents the symbol time. Similarly, this one also represents the symbol time, but you can note here that we have a reference here as coherence time and delay spread. You have coherence time here, you have coherence time here, and you have delay spread here. So by looking at the equation to the left, you can say that if a symbol time is greater than coherence time, what will happen? If a symbol time is greater than coherence time, what is the effect? If a symbol time is greater than coherence time, then we'll be having fast fading, right? If the symbol time is greater than coherence time, we'll be experiencing fast fading. That means we are covering this area. If symbol time is greater than coherence time, that is these two regions will experience fast fading. Similarly, these two regions, the regions to the, these two to the left will experience slow fading. Okay, now what we'll do is we come to the y-axis. So if Ts is greater than delay spread, we'll be having flat fading, right? If Ts is greater than delay spread, we'll be having flat fading. So these two, that is on the top, we'll be having flat fading and flat fading. Similarly, in the bottom, we'll be having frequency selective fading and frequency selective fading. That is, Ts is less than delay spread. So put together, we can classify the entire region as maybe like a quadrant: first quadrant, second quadrant, third, or fourth. So we can say that there are 4 quadrants. In the first quadrant, we'll be having flat fast fading. Then in second, we'll be having flat slow fading. And in the third, we'll be having frequency selective slow fading. And in the fourth, we'll be having frequency selective fast fading. So this is nothing but a representation of how you will classify the channel based on the coherence time and delay spread. So if you know these two, 4 equations, that is Ts is less than Tc, what will happen if Ts is less than Tc, what will happen if Ts is greater than Tc, or Ts is greater than delay spread if Ts is less than delay spread. I think it is more than enough. And similarly, you have to know what will happen if you are taking the inverse, that is if you are considering the frequency domain. So that is the whole essence of what we have learned by these classes, in these classes. So yes, that's all. Thank you. Any doubts? Yeah, so one more thing that I want to tell you is that if you are referring to the textbook by Andrea Goldsmith, I have seen different kind of equations and different kind of values in materials given by different universities. For example, yes, yeah. Look at this equation. This diagram. You can see 2 diagrams, right? Autocorrelation diagram and scattering function diagram. So if you look at this diagram, I just saw that there is a material from Stanford University. It's Stanford University, and they have mentioned this particular time instant as 2Tc, and this particular time instant as 2 into Doppler spread, 2 to BD. So keep in mind that there may be some